Good morning, everyone. Don't have anything in particular going on today. No repair project or anything like that. Just talking about lighters. Maybe looking at a few. What's up, Professor? I watched your video this morning. And I'll get back over there and watch some others. I noticed that you had a few lighter-related videos that you'd published over there. So I was having trouble finding your channel until last week, I think because of the way you're spelling it, the two F's. It wasn't coming up in the search results because it was only including one F in the spelling of professor. I see that Dylan was here before the stream began, talking about the tool that I had laying down here, which I think these were Pittsburgh brand, bought at Harbor Freight Tools. I've got several sets of them, and they come with, I think it was 4 different ones: a straight, a 45 degree, a hook, and I can't remember what the 4th one was. Yeah, I noticed there were also a couple of other professors' garages, and one of them spelling it exactly like you did. But yeah, I found you. I subscribed to your channel, and I did watch the jet light video this morning, and I'll get back over there and watch the others later. Got so many lighters fueled up here, it's hard for me to keep track recently. Then occasionally I strike one that I don't expect to light, and it's still got fuel in it. I sold several lighters this past week. Sold that Carrier Air Wing 7 Navy lighter. Sold the other Majestic Views. Sold the Camel Smokin' Joe's Racing lighter with the tin. Seemed like there was another one too. I'm forgetting right at the moment. Maybe the 2021 OTLS. I think that was it. The 2021 OTLS convention lighter. The second of those canceled conventions because of the COVID pandemic. I was watching the news this morning. Now they're talking about we need to be concerned about a fungus outbreak. Apparently it's the kind of thing that typically only hits people that are hospitalized or in those kind of settings, but now it's getting to where they're finding these infections in people who don't have a history of being in that hospital setting. Anyway, doesn't sound real promising. I think I'm going to go ahead and fuel up this all-around leaf, is what the box calls it. And I would have sworn it was that I'd seen something where it was called etched leaf, and what it looks like to me is that they have taken a brass lighter, completely painted it with this. It was sort of a textured, not smooth, not like a high gloss or anything like that, maybe like a satin finish. And then gone back in, I don't know if they do that with a laser of some kind, but etched into the paint, taking the paint away in the design of the all-around cannabis leaf. Anyway, really cool. Just the second brand new Zippo that I had ever bought. Bought a few more than that now, but this is probably my favorite of all of the Zippos that I've personally bought and used. And I was kind of busy talking there when I did that, so wasn't able to count. So that was just kind of an approximation in my head. We'll see if I got enough fluid in there or not. What's up, Zippo Daily Fix? Glad that you have joined us today. I've got a symbol here that's covering up part of the chat, so if I'm slow, you guys forgive me. Yeah, I saw, Professor, that you had a couple of Zippo videos over there, so I'll definitely get over there and check those out. Yeah, man, you know, it's not real difficult. Obviously, there are different ways that you can make videos. There are different elements that you can add, and each element that you add may make it a little bit more difficult. When I was doing the green screen, that required a lot more editing and really a major time commitment on my part compared to the way that I'm doing videos now. And you know, there's a trade-off. Maybe one looks a little better, but neither one really seemed to get better views than the other. So, you know, somebody like Eastwall, and we talk about his videos all the time, but you know, there's a lot of work and planning that goes into those because he's timing up music with the ignition of the lighter and knocking the lighter off the shelf and all these other things, and introducing the image of the patent and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's varying degrees of difficulty, but it certainly is easy enough with your iPhone, or I'm assuming an Android would be just as easy. That anybody who collects anything, I think YouTube is the ideal place for you to share that, because whether you've got one that you want to show off or thousands, there's an audience there that wants to see it. And I've talked about it a lot in the past, that I really do feel like YouTube is a social media. It functions as a social media more so than Facebook and all of those do today, because of all the politicization and just the political crap that went on around the last election. I don't really even get much in my Facebook feed from friends, people I actually know in real life anymore. Most of it is what I seek out. That's what it shows me then again in my feed, is that same kind of stuff, and that's the Facebook lighter groups, which a lot of you guys have been in. And if you haven't been in there, you should. Zippo Addicts, OTLS, the Vintage Cigarette Lighter Collectors. I think it's another group. I can't remember all the names. There's several that are Zippo related, and then there are several. There's a Dunhill group, a Ronson group, a lighter repair group. There's all kinds of Facebook groups if you're interested in lighters. So anyway, yeah, I would encourage you, Professor, and which, by the way, I just made the connection. We'd, or at least you had communicated with me at one point over in the Facebook group or one of those messenger. I can't remember exactly, but I just made connection this past week of who you are. That the Professor's Garage and that other account were the same, or the same person. What's the issue with the video? Why is it taking so long, Professor? Are you waiting for something else to come to pass that you need to document in the video? And so it's taken that long, and now you know it's going to take at least a couple more. I've got at least one video that I've had uploaded for a while, and I have it set for a preliminary date, but I still don't know 100% that I'm going to publish it. And I got a lot of other videos that haven't necessarily been edited yet, but some of the cooking with sugar alternatives and flour alternatives. In other words, stevia and erythritol sweetener with almond flour. I've got some other, and not only that, but roasting nuts with the same sweetener. I've got some videos like that I would like to publish. That if I do, those will be Saturday morning videos. But you know, there's all kinds of content you can create. But as far as the, you know, I think it's great for anybody to publish whatever content they want to publish. You know, and that's one thing that I think is great about YouTube is that it's not necessarily like specific to your niche. You can you don't get penalized for publishing something that may seem off topic. But specifically, as far as I'm concerned, the more vintage lighter or petrol lighter content that we can get, the better. It's just going to grow the community. There's all kinds of people that are active over on those Facebook groups that aren't on YouTube on a regular basis. There's people that frequent the websites that aren't on Facebook or YouTube. And then there's other people that are just still out there collecting on their own or in their own little smaller local connections or community. But YouTube is a really communal place, or it has been for me, with very little negative aspects to it. There's been a troll or two, but it's been few and far between. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of where I'm at, how I got started. Well, you know, Professor, I got started by wanting to create these short little videos showing that the lighter functioned. So just those first ones weren't even a minute long. Just be me kind of showing the lighter around, showing all sides. I don't even think I didn't even like pull the fuel screw out or anything. I would just light them. There was country music playing in the background, and I embedded those. I still do embed those show and tell videos into my eBay listings. That was my purpose. And then I started getting questions because I was doing repairs via the mail at the time, just here and there as people would ask. I never charged anything for it. I had a few people who did send me some cash or something else in return as a thank you, but I just always did it as a favor. And so that was kind of what I was focused on at the time, and then writing for the website. And then over time, as I began to make more videos, and I came to realize there really weren't that many repair videos on YouTube, that, you know, I was consulting the 1954 lighter repair manual and the Toledo Bend VCS or VCL website, but there weren't like very many tutorial demonstration videos, at least for different lighters. You know, you can find somebody showing you how to fuel up a Zippo or change the wick in a Zippo, but not a Ronson or an Evans or the any of the other hundreds or thousands of other brands. So that's when I started making the repair videos. And once I got started making the repair videos and seeing how many people were messaging me saying thank you, I mean, like literally on a daily basis, thanking me for posting this one particular video because it enabled them to get their lighter working. And I realized I didn't really enjoy the whole mailing back and forth of the lighters. It sort of stressed me out, heightened my anxiety in the first place, and then it just seemed like my time was better suited to making the repair videos and encouraging people to repair their own. And I've still accepted a few repairs by the mail over the last few years for people who, for whatever reason, didn't believe that they could do it because of sort of condition that their hands were in, which is the same basic position I'm in. So in that case, I'll probably make an exception. Somebody asked me last week, I can't remember who it was, about repairing a lighter, and we never got back to it, but whoever that was, if you'll remind me. Like I mentioned then, I don't do it, but I'm willing to do it. If you can convince me significantly that you really need it done and you can't do it yourself. But most of the repairs are really easy. Most of them are things that, you know, if you can tie your own shoes or, you know, put new weed eater cord in your weed eater or put gas in your lawnmower, perform basic maintenance on, you know, your toaster, then you can probably do the repair on the lighter. So yeah, for me, I get what you're saying, that you felt like you can make a better video, Professor, because I've been there, and I will make a video if I think I can do something. But I'll make it even if I don't think I can do it better. Just, I mean, I kind of want to cover everything. Some people aren't going to search out every channel. They might just find my channel and expect me to show. Well, I know from the questions I get, they expect me to do all the repairs or all the projects, which I just don't have the lighters on hand to do every project that I'm asked. But I'll get to them eventually, Lord willing, and if God keeps allowing me to do this kind of work, then I would be hard pressed in this lifetime to have enough time left to do every project, every wick replacement, every drilling out of the flint tube, everything that might need to be done for every lighter that's out there. That would be a lot of work. So there's definitely plenty more to come, and I don't see my running out of projects anytime soon. Like I said, it's basically just having the lighters to work on. You talking about a staff like Moses carried through the wilderness, Professor? Yeah, see, that's exactly that'll make a great YouTube video. You're showing if you're whittling a staff, it's not a small piece of wood. So I imagine that's a major effort. Trying to keep up on these different devices, and for whatever reason, the device that is dependent on the Wi-Fi doesn't seem to want to work while we are in the middle of one of these. Nice. Now, have you carved or whittled other pieces before? I don't remember seeing whittling over there on your channel. Is that, have you done any videos on that topic in the past? Yeah, I can't even get this other device to bring up YouTube now. I'm going to keep that one out for a while. Maybe put these vintage looks up. Or put them up soon when they run dry. This is probably my main everyday carry lighter, one that's there most often. The 41 replica from 2021, and it looks like it has just run out of fuel. So I tell you what I think I'll do. Go ahead and put it up for a while and keep the no slash vintage look. Keep that one out and use it. I like to keep a couple of petrol lighters fueled up in addition to a table lighter. And then I've usually got a handful of jet lights. They're just kind of scattered around. And I hadn't been using the pipe much lately, so I hadn't been keeping a pipe lighter fueled up. But when I do, that's when I usually use that Continental L&M. You see a lot of these where the paint has really chipped off them horribly, but this one, I don't know if that's just good fortune, just the exact right conditions or what, but the paint on this one has endured pretty well with the Zippo pipe insert in it. What's up, David G? Glad that you have joined us. Watching on your television. I was talking to my buddy Shane, who's joined us a time or two in the past. He was watching last week, didn't comment. And mentioned to him that somebody else had, maybe that was you, David, last week, that had joined us and let me know that you were going to be watching for the rest of the time on your television, which is really the way that I prefer to watch YouTube. At least, you know, like the instructional type videos, because it's so much bigger than watching. You got these tiny little objects that we're working on to begin with. And then to be looking down into a small device at them, so much easier to have it blown up right in your face on a 42-inch or bigger television. I'm trying to remember, we had somebody else who used to, somebody who let me know in the comments. It was a younger lighter enthusiast from somewhere in Europe, I believe. Why can I not remember his name? But yeah, he used to comment every day, and then after a while he didn't comment, and then he came back and left me a comment saying that he was having to watch on TV now. That's why he hadn't been commenting. So it's all good. I appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate all the support we get. I do wonder though about some of the ones that have come and gone along the way, like our friend Boo Rock Beer. Haven't heard from him in years now. I hope Boo Rock is doing well. And I'm sure he is, because I'm certain I still get notifications from following him on YouTube. I think his what's the word? His energy is probably spent on things more important than cigarette lighters. Not that there's anything wrong with spending your time on cigarette lighters. It's a noble pursuit, but you know, there are people who are concerned about the way people are being treated all around the world, and you know, I would put that a little bit higher than whether or not we can get our cigarette lighters functioning again. Yeah, the vintage look is a pretty cool lighter, Professor. I like, was that you that sent me the pictures on Facebook a couple of weeks ago? Somebody sent me a picture of 4 lighters that they had just, no, that wasn't you, that may have been Keith. And one of his was a brass vintage look with the slashes. And just from the, you know, profile view, I think you'd call that the profile. Just from that view of a Zippo lighter, this is probably my favorite look. I love the slash corner look. With the 41 replica, you see a difference in shape, but it's more subtle. It's not as readily noticeable. And I do think the 41 with the slash corners would be cool, just like, wouldn't that basically be like the 37, 38 model? So yeah, the vintage look is a cool lighter for sure. And I think a little bit more maneuverable in my hands because of the squared off edges of the top and bottom. The 41 replica is a little bit short and rounded for my shorter fingers. It's alright, it's not horrible, but not great either. And I think just the regular Zippo is alright too. Feels in my hand a little bit more akin to the the vintage look. Not as rounded off as the 41. So David, can you not comment when you're on TV, period? Or is it just a pain in the butt to do it? I can't remember. I don't know that I've ever tried to comment. I don't know that I've ever actually even logged in to my YouTube account from a TV. Wondering if when I started using this lighter, if I rerouted that wick. It looks like I did, because you can see it right there. I'd have to go back and look. That's one thing, Professor, talking about making videos. It's after the number of videos that I've made in the last few years. Created the channel in 2018, but really didn't start, well, I mean, sort of in bursts. Made a lot of videos, but then did a video every day for a couple of years, or there and abouts. So at this point, it's like 710 or so videos, and I literally, I mean, sometimes I can remember that a video's been made on a certain lighter, but there's plenty of times that I think it has, and I go to look it up to use that footage for something, or to grab a picture to use in an article on the website, or to link to that video in an article on the website, and that video wasn't made. I had that happen with something that I sold here in the last few weeks. I think it was the it was actually the Camel Smokin' Joe's Racing with the lighter still in the tin. When I got ready to list that, I realized I had not made a show and tell video for that lighter. So I just included the video where I was cleaning the lighter up, removing the warning sticker off the back of it, and didn't have a flint in it. So we didn't have to dig the flint out. It was pretty easy. Anyway, that's one of the lighters that sold last week. Okay, so you're commenting from the app on the phone, I'm assuming then. Yeah, I'll have to check out. I've used the apps on my different app that downloads to the Fire Stick, and then the other TVs are all smart TVs. But I guess I just hadn't watched enough to, or like I said, I know I haven't actually logged in to YouTube. So that would probably make a difference before it would let me comment from wherever. Yeah, I don't understand sometimes why a certain device or a certain application on a device, some of them will cast to the TV and others won't. Seems like if one of them's got the technology, they ought to all be able to do it. You wouldn't think there'd be any great secret to how they're doing it. And then sometimes it's not an option to cast it at all. Yeah, and fellas, that's basically what I'm doing here is I've got my phone doing the stream, and then I'm keeping up with the live chat over here on another device, because the chat is, for me to see the screen, it would be really small, and it's facing away from me. So at least it's good to know that I can bring this up in several different ways and it doesn't interfere, that I can be logged in with, well, I mean, I've only got two different accounts. I've got my personal account and the Dependable Flame account. Well, that hadn't always been the case, David. I've had I've had some microphone issues in the past. I've had back at the very beginning, I had some issues where the sound was, I had trouble getting volume. Anyway, I've improved some of those things, but I haven't spent a lot of money on any of this equipment, but I hope it's okay. I hope that we're running into some problems. It's been a couple of months ago now when the microphone I was using just kind of apparently fried out on me. And it was like a demon had gotten inside, causing all kinds of static. So, but a lot of this kind of equipment, just like we were talking about with you being able to shoot video with your phone and all that, it's inexpensive, it doesn't cost a lot. And so I found that same thing with the microphone or other accessories that you may run into that you need. They're usually not all that expensive. But I appreciate you saying that, David, and I'll try to keep it good. I don't like hearing those little gremlins in the static when I go to edit a video. I am going to exit this real quick because I just realized I'm looking at this from my personal account right now, and that may explain why it's got that icon. Over part of the chat that's making it hard for me to see. There we go. But no, it's still there. It must be something new. There's like a heart emoji or heart icon over here on the right of my chat that is covering up the first line of the chat if I'm caught up. David, I'm just drinking, well, let me go look. I can't remember whether that was Folgers. I usually will drink the cheapest decaf they have available, which would be great value when I buy it at Sam's. But this past time I bought it at Winco, and the cheapest they had was the Folgers. So I'm drinking Folgers breakfast blend, brewed with a little bit of cinnamon, tapped into the grounds, and then a heavy dose of heavy whipping cream with some stevia sweetener. And then later on, if there's any of that left, or if I brew a second cup, then I'll add a little bit of almond milk and ice, and I'll drink it for the rest of the day iced. Yeah, Zippo Daily Fix was accusing me of being a masochist or glutton for punishment last week for drinking decaf, but I enjoy it. I don't feel like uh, I'm not suffering from it at all. So, but I pretty much don't. I do drink almond milk. I'll drink almond milk with some of the cocoa roasted nuts or cereal or granola that I make, and I drink water. Other than that, the coffee is the only other thing. I've sort of had a craving for some soda recently, but finding something that doesn't have sugar and doesn't have caffeine requires, you can't just find that just anywhere. You can't usually pick that up at the corner gas station. But I may be on the lookout for a caffeine-free Diet Coke sometime soon. But I don't drink soda or anything like that on a regular basis. Yeah, Winco's pretty good. I like it. I like the raw products. That's where I get most of the nuts that I use. The pumpkin seed kernels, the pepitas, raw pepitas, raw sunflowers or sunflower kernels, and that's where I get the erythritol sweetener that I've been using. I've got a few different brands of it, and it's gone up a little bit higher now than it was initially, but some of them were rather cheap at first compared to what you pay for some of the better known brands. Yeah, heavy whipping cream, man, that's the key to a good cup of coffee to me. It provides so much, just this depth of richness. It's like, sort of like turning your coffee into like hot chocolate. If you put cocoa in there, it would taste like hot chocolate because of the creaminess. And I use a good, I mean, I'm not saying it's a quarter full of heavy whipping cream, but there's a solid layer of heavy whipping cream in the bottom of my cup. Yeah, I don't remember the last time I've drank a Mountain Dew. But like we talked about last week, I don't typically consume caffeine. I will have a caffeinated soda here and there, but um, it's not usually on purpose. Or not the ideal situation anyway. I got to really be having a craving for, and it's going to have to be sugar free because I won't drink it with sugar in it, period. Yeah, I don't know about that, Professor. Whether an apple gives you as much energy as a cup of coffee, it's possible. I don't I don't eat fruit because of the sugar, but I've eaten a lot of fruit in my life. But you know, like we talked about last week, I don't particularly believe that caffeine. It never really seemed to help me stay awake when I was really having a hard time staying awake. It's more like the other way. It's more like it's enough to make me agitated when I need to be sleeping. Yeah, that's interesting. I assume when you say light cream, David, you may be talking about half and half. You know, it's one thing that I didn't realize before, but it's how much, like cow's milk has, I can't remember now. I haven't had it in the house in so long, but it's got a good amount of sugar in it. Seems like it's at least a few grams of sugar per serving. So, like, I won't even drink half and half. That's one reason why I use the heavy whipping cream is because it doesn't have any I don't believe it's got any carbs or sugar in it. But the erythritol or stevia sweetener or the monk fruit erythritol sweetener, they're all really good, and they all taste just like sugar, just as sweet. I have not done any cooking with acorns, Professor. Have you? I've stepped on plenty of acorns my entire life. Plenty of them around here. But the Kiamishi Mountains of southeastern Oklahoma, where I grew up hunting, there are tons of acorns. And the northwest part of or the northeast part of the state as well. My parents have a house on Lake Tenkiller. And even before they had that house on Lake Tenkiller, we used to go down there for vacations during the summer. A lot of oak trees, a lot of acorns down there, or up there. So I'm very familiar with acorns, but I have not done any cooking with them. Do you, David, do you believe there's something inherently bad with the soda, or is that just a personal choice? I know some people that they don't care what the soda is sweetened with, or if it's got caffeine in it or not, they're going to tell you soda's horrible for you. And I guess if you drink a lot of diet soda, then especially the whatever artificial, I don't know, some of the sweeteners they have today aren't, I don't think carry the same kind of danger as like aspartame or what was it when I was growing up in the 70s? I had saccharin. I think there are some side effects with those, but these sweeteners, alternate, no impact sweeteners that they have today, like erythritol, monk fruit, and stevia. I think they're, at least from what we know of them so far, I don't think they're carry those negative connotations as the others. But I'm curious. Okay, just personal choice as far as the soda. Gotcha. I agree with you, Professor, as far as the aspartame. That's one of the reasons why that would keep me from drinking it on a regular basis. I used to drink it on a regular basis all the time when I was drinking alcohol because I would mix whiskey with it. But to be honest, maybe toward the very end I was using diet soda, which it was a lot of soda I was going through. You drink a lot of whiskey, you need a lot of soda to go with it. But that's definitely what would keep me from doing it. But I wouldn't, the aspartame wouldn't keep me from drinking one every 6 months or something, and that's about as often as I do. But yeah, I would prefer it to be sweetened with stevia or something like that. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now what the product I had was, Professor. It was some sort of a scent product, maybe like that was in a bar, like a solid deodorant that I used at one point when I was hunting, and one of them was an acorn flavor, for lack of a better word. It was scented like acorns, and man, it was like acorn s'mores or something that it smelled like. It smelled sweet, it smelled like, well, it smelled like roasted acorns, but it smelled delicious. I can remember commenting to the people I was hunting with, every time I would smell that, how good it smelled. It smelled like you could eat it. It appears as though spring is finally here for good in Oklahoma City. We were 80-something degrees yesterday, and back up there, Mangum, which is a town I'm very familiar with from the southwestern part of the state, got to 96 degrees yesterday. But Oklahoma City, we were like 87, and I think we're supposed to be back up to about the same today. The evenings have been in the mid-60s. I doubt if we're going to get back below freezing again. And we got a couple of daytime highs, or maybe one daytime high in the next 10 days forecasted at 59, and the rest were all 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I'm ready to lose my jacket for a while and just be able to walk outside without catching a shiver. I noticed also, Professor, you had the same backdrop as East Wall had on the latest restoration video that he published. I had an eBay listing I was wanting to show you guys, but I'm monitoring on this only iPad that I can use. So I'm going to click this off as soon as I get that coffee warmed up. I'm going to click off of the live chat for a minute. I'm going to click off this live chat for a minute and show you guys a listing that I found. Okay, so this was oh no, I'm showing you the later one. So obviously you can see here this was relisted later. I don't remember what the starting bid was, but $555 shipping, and it had 2 bids, and it still was only at $550. So a low starting bid, and only 4 photos. Now, These two lighters are flip-top lighters with advertising graphics on them, or at least advertising of one kind or another. Look like they might be new. Definitely look like they're in decent condition. So I'm interested in those because they look like lighters I might be able to turn around and sell. Good lighters, make sure they're working, get the flint tubes cleared out, wicks straightened out and all that kind of stuff. And so those are lighters that are of interest to me. I guess we've got 5 lighters in the photo total. But the most interesting lighter is this one sitting right here, which, you know, you'll see these World War II era black crackle lighters in listings all the time, and they may not be a Zippo. You may not necessarily be able to tell. In this case, I was relatively certain from the initial photo that it was because of the rounded bottom. I don't know of any of the others that won't stand on their bottoms. Won't stand on the base like the Zippo World War II crackles. They're rounded, so it just won't stand up like that. But the interesting part is, you get around here to the last photo, get a look at the insert, and it's obviously a 14-hole hollow rivet. That would be the correct insert for a World War II era crackle Zippo. So I was really interested in this listing, saved it immediately, couldn't wait. It was a 7-day listing, and this is not the first time that I've seen this happen. But then when I went back to look, the listing was gone and it had been relisted, and by that time it had already sold for $70. So it appears as though somebody got a hold of that seller and offered them, told them if they would relist it for $70, they'd buy it right now, which may have seemed like a good idea, a good deal to that seller, but they shorted themselves by at least 2/3. That crackle was in very good condition, still had the majority of its paint. It would have brought every bit of $200, $250, and maybe even more. So I don't know what the etiquette or protocol, or if that's even legal by eBay standards, but it's not the first time that I've saved an item hoping to bid on it a week later, or bid some point in that next week, but it's just been listed and now I'm ready to watch it for the week and hopefully have a chance to buy it by the end of the week, and they take that listing down, put it back up and sell it at a price that was lower than it should have gone. Anyway, I just think that's interesting. But that just goes to show you there are black crackles out there. Zippo World War II era black crackles that are unidentified, even on eBay. If you don't believe me, if you happen to just look at that and think, no, that could be a Zephyr or a Gale Light or a Park, like I said, none of them have rounded bottoms, and they also don't have Zippo inserts with 14-hole chimneys. But obviously I won't get a chance to bid on that one now since they relisted it and sold it. But you would have thought that at that point when somebody offers them $70, they would at least Google, or not Google, search it a little bit deeper there on eBay, do a little bit more research to figure out exactly what they had on their hands. That was a good price to offer, though. If you're going to, like I said, I don't know if that's legal by eBay standards or not, but that did leave room for them to make some money off of it, even paying $70 for it. It's a Zippo. ZDF. Let me go back and pull up the pictures. Like I said, you don't see the you don't see the bottom in any of the pictures, but you can see that it has a rounded bottom. You can't see it well enough to read it anyway. But clearly there, that is a Zippo insert. That's not a Park or a Zephyr or what am I missing? What's that other brand that made the aluminum lighters that had like the marble type paint on them? Anyway, yeah, it's a Zippo. It's a Zippo that definitely would have sold for every bit of $200, $250. Yeah, no, Storm King, those are usually marked Park on the insert. Maybe marked Storm King on the windscreen. I'm trying to remember what that other brand. It wasn't Chic, but it was somebody that made razors. It seems like for some reason. I can't remember. They're one of the more common of the aluminum flip top lighters from the late 40s. No, not Champ. I don't remember Champ making. Did Champ make a Black Crackle? I know all those American companies did. Man, what was, well, I'd have to exit this again. Yeah, you're right about that. They had the faux leather and faux reptile skin wraps, just like Park did. Park did a lot of those plastic, rubberized type wraps. This is driving me crazy because I've got to. Well, I'm just gonna have to exit the stream here for a second. Exit me monitoring the stream. See if I can find. Yeah, no, I don't know where. Trying to remember the name of the blue. Let's try this. World. Can't imagine what I typed in for the description of that video if I didn't put some reference to World War II. Hell, anyway, I'll have to go back and try to find it later. But it's not any of those names that you're mentioning, Jeremy. Although those are all fine companies, well worth people collecting. But this is taking me too long to try to search through all these old videos. Very similar though, the lighter that I'm thinking about is very similar to that Park. Oh yeah, this Park right here. Yeah, it escapes me. Thought I had it there for another moment, but it's not to be. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with those Champ. The only thing is sometimes those wraps, especially, sometimes those wraps will be on there so tight that you can tell that it has affected the, it's like it shrunk and like drew up on the hinge and gave it an overbite. But they don't always do that. I've seen others that are just like in perfect condition, like, so maybe, you know, if you left them in the attic or the basement, maybe the key is keeping them in you know, in good condition and air conditioned surroundings. I have cranked on this. I accidentally turned this lid almost sideways one time just by the way I was trying to mishandle it while I was closing it, so I had to straighten it up. But you can see how much that hinge, this thing isn't too far from needing a repair. Still looks fine when it's closed. That's definitely taken some damage over time. And more so, it's not that it's wobbly within the hinge, it's I think where that lower hinge is attached. That one took a fall off the balcony. Chipped the paint up. We're 3 floors up here, so I expected it to be worse than that. There were some concrete bites here on the side. But all in all, the lighter fared a lot better in that fall off the balcony than the couple of phones I've sent off the side of it. So you're not a strictly Zippo guy, Zippo Daily Fix? Do you consider those Champ lighters part of your collection? Or did you just accumulate them while collecting Zippos and haven't ever done anything with them? Which, speak of what to do with old lighters, there's a guy on several of the Facebook lighter groups nowadays. I think his name is Eric Hargrove, maybe Hargrave, something like that. But this guy is completely refurbishing ScriptoView lighters, replacing the seals in them, and not only replacing all the seals, wick, wadding, making them functional to where you could rely on it, and not that that gasket might disintegrate with the next, or I shouldn't say gasket, they're really more O-rings, but that those old ones aren't going to disintegrate the next time you push the button. But he's also using sandpaper and some kind of tiny pick to hold it on the end of it to clean up and buff up the inside of that clear plastic to where they look like new again, where you can see the advertising panels on the inside. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I don't consider myself a Zippo guy at all. I mean, I love Zippo and I've got plenty in my collection, but I don't like zero in on Zippo, even though that is where I started. Um, that 2016 brush chrome Zippo was the first petrol lighter I ever owned, and that set me off on the course of finding older ones. And just recently have gotten to where I buy a newer Zippo here and there. But I was definitely brought into the hobby because of an interest in Zippos, but very quickly became enamored with the other mechanisms. Like the thing I remember about the Champ from day one, it seemed so clever to me back then, and it was probably 2017 by the time I started acquiring other lighters. But the fact that that windshield converts up and over, that seemed pretty clever to me. Anything that one lighter will do that you're not used to, or make an improvement on another, or just some differently designed or operating mechanism is always interesting. And we talked about the similarity with the Park as far as the synthetic plastic wraps go, but they also have that brute force leaf spring design for holding the lid closed that it's probably not ideal for long-term usage. I think you're definitely going to run the risk of wearing a hinge out from a heavily used Park or Champ than you would a Zippo. But other than that, I don't know that the manufacturing quality of either one is inferior at all to an actual Zippo. Yeah, Beatty jets are some of my favorites too. I've written a couple articles on Beatty jets, made several videos. I've had probably well over a dozen, maybe 20. But since I started making the videos for all the lighters that I sold, maybe 5 or so. There's a few videos if you go back and look. One of my very first videos is a short Beatty jet lighter video. Really cool, especially when you don't know. I mean, I used one for the longest time, just lighting cigarettes off of it. Not tobacco cigarettes, but other kinds of cigarettes off of the wick flame before I even became aware that you could tilt that and it would produce a whole other flame. But yeah, that's a cool little piece of machinery, just for this little, it's not much bigger than a Zippo, a little bit fatter, a little bit wider, probably about the same height. And, to be able to fill that up with petrol fuel and get that sort of hissing, long butane-like flame, like a torch-type flame. Well, I mean, it is a torch flame. It's just achieved in a different way. Yeah, David, you should definitely check out the Champs. It's a Arthur Dubsky design. So while most people may look at it and say this is a Zippo knockoff, I believe it has its own patents. And for those people that want to say that, even George Blaisdell did not come up with the idea of a Zippo lighter all on his own. He basically had the idea to employ a lid on top of what the design of, I think it's the Orlik Sport. I can't remember the exact lighter, but it was an Orlick lighter that had actually would have been better off as far as not evaporating fuel, because the Orlick had an actual snuffer rather than just a lid. But anyway, I'm not trying to dog George Blaisdell. I just think it's funny that so many people want to call every flip top lighter a Zippo knockoff. What those Scriptos Zippo Daily Fix? Have you ever dug into them? Seen how many of them will hold fuel? I would say from my experience, it's probably somewhere around about the best that I could come up with. The most optimistic would be maybe 1 out of every 3 that the seals hadn't dried up, that they'll still work. Just like any lighter, they're going to be prone to have the flint have turned to dust or concreted in them, so you're going to have to worry about that, digging the flint out. And it's a little bit different digging the flint out of those, because the flint tube is not stationary in the lighter. But it's not all that difficult either. It's just a little bit of caution and care. And then re-wicking them isn't all that difficult. You're just going to use a short Zippo type copper braided wick. But those seals, that's something I never even contemplated. When I came across one that had the seals that are broken, I just gave up on it. But this fella is using some kind of tool to reach through the fuel hole to replace those O-rings that seal off the fuel chamber that allow you to let fuel into the fuel chamber. So anyway, I don't know if that's something you've ever considered. Yeah, I would say, I don't know, I haven't had a ton of them. I've had a lot of them since then that I just sold without even really getting into to see if they would hold fuel. But at the very beginning, I had a few that held fuel. But like I said, it definitely was a crapshoot. But I had a couple that, once they held it just fine. But you're always wondering. You're always wondering with I don't know, those were definitely being made by the 1960s. I'm not sure about maybe back into the 50s as well. All the way up, I think, into the 1980s, early 80s. I think those smaller versions, I think, that may be after the company was sold to I don't know if it was a Chinese or Japanese company. They were sold to a company and not made in America after a certain point, I believe. But anyway, that fellow on those YouTube or Facebook lighter groups, he's figured out a way to get all that done, to buff up the clear plastic so you can see through them like you're supposed to again, and also to get those O-rings fixed or replaced. So that's an option if you got Scripto view lighters that you would like to get into proper working order and sell, or there's somebody there that you might be able to sell them to if you don't have an interest in selling them yourself. Yeah, the Scripto are very cool lighters. I don't know about the fuel. I guess that upper chamber, I don't know if there is typically wadding in that upper chamber or not. I can't remember. It's been so long since I had one apart that far. But I always wondered about I guess if you have all your seals holding properly, then it should retain the fuel without evaporating, just like the Zippo fuel canister would. It's got a seal on every opening. But it certainly takes a lot more fuel to fill up a Scripto View than filling up a Zippo, because the main tank that you're pouring fuel into is completely empty in that Scripto, besides the little advertising panel, or whatever you would call that little piece of plastic that would have the advertising, or whatever other embellishment that lighter was highlighting. Can't even remember now, David, which I had one that I used pretty often before I sold it, but I can't even remember now what it had. It wasn't advertising, it was just some design or something. Can't even remember. But they are cool, and especially the ones that have, like the iconic type old advertising, Coca-Cola or things like that, Budweiser. You see a lot of dice and fishing flies and things like that. And of course, kind of obscure advertisements for local businesses. But then they had a lot of theme, like fishing and other sports themes, golfer. That may have been what I had, was a golfer. Red band. That sounds right. Yeah, there is a company out there that makes those Scripto View type lighters brand new. And I'm not sure. I saw, it must have been an eBay listing last night for these Zorro lighters, that they've gone beyond just making flip top lighters like Zippos and something that looks like a Thorens or a Lancel or Abdullah. Now they're making ones that are after these aluminum block lighter designs, like the Double Light. And I don't, and not only that, but what really drove me, what rubbed me the wrong way about that company that was reproducing Scripto View type lighters is the name of the website or Facebook page or whatever it was that was promoting them was called Vintage Lighters. And they weren't vintage at all, they were brand new. You see that with a lot of those vintage designs that are being sold that are new manufacture on eBay and Amazon, is they'll use the word vintage in the title. But it's not vintage. It's a brand new manufactured item. So, yeah, I don't care for it. Yeah, I know that ZF77 has done reviews on those Zorros, and they definitely look like, at least some of them, are improvements on the Zippo design. The way that the one insert has an actual snuffer rather than just a lid, that's a cool thing. The see-through tank, might be a good idea. I don't know how that works though. Does it employ wadding, Professor, or is it clear like a Scripto, or does it have wadding in there that you can see it? Just curious. But anyway, yeah, I'm not crazy about that newly manufactured vintage stuff. Replica is a better name. Nostalgic is a better name. But vintage implies that it has some age to it. What about table lighters? ZDF, you got a lot of table lighters in your collection? I've got a few. One thing that I don't like about table lighters, which the Cygnus is not that way, it's just got these rubber feet, but most Zippo table lighters and also Ronson table lighters and many others have a felt pad on them, which by the time that felt pad, say it was manufactured in the 1960s and here we are in 2023, so it might have 60 years of filth and grime in that felt pad. It doesn't bother me as much with the felt or the whiting on the inside because it's either been soaked or you're going to soak it in fuel. You would think that would knock out some of the impurities anyway. But I'm always leery to buy table lighters that cost much money, even if I'm going to use them, because I know I'm going to end up pulling that felt pad off the bottom of it and replacing it. Just because they all end up filthy over time. But I have figured out that that's not the hardest thing. I just replaced that one with a little bit of glue, a piece of cardboard, and then a pair of scissors to cut the felt to the actual right size. But I thought that turned out pretty good, and I wouldn't be worried about doing it in others and with other styles. Even if I had to come up with some alternate, maybe the cardboard couldn't be as thick, or I might even need something thicker. Plenty of options out there to fabricate something like that. Yeah, table lighters are a little bit interesting. Well, they're very interesting. What keeps me away from them is how expensive it is to ship. Requiring bigger boxes or bigger bubble mailers, more padding, whatever. Table lighters are definitely heavier, so they're going to be more expensive to ship, where a regular size Zippo or most other pocket lighters, usually less than 4 ounces, usually you can ship them, I get shipping supplies at a reduced rate through my eBay store, and then I get a little bit of a reduced rate on postage through eBay as well. So usually around, if it doesn't weigh over 4 ounces, then I can have it shipped for less than $5, no problem, including the postage. But you go to mailing a couple of table lighters and all of a sudden you climb up over that. Well, it used to be 13 ounces for first class before you automatically upgraded to priority, but now, at least with shipping yourself from home by the USPS.com website or doing that through what eBay administers, either way you can go up to 15.99 ounces. As long as you don't go over 16 ounces, then it can go first class. But once you go over 16 ounces, or once you hit that 16 ounce mark, then it's going to have to go priority mail, and it's going to cost you a little bit more. So that is my aversity to table lighters, but they are just as cool to mess with. They're actually, better to fuel up and have them sit around because they don't tend to evaporate. They've got bigger tanks that are usually sealed off better than a lot of pocket lighters. So I love table lighters. It's not my focus of selling or buying, but whatever I acquire incidentally or trades or whatever, obviously I'd be interested in any Cygnus table lighter with advertising, as long as it didn't cost me too much money. or it cost me too much to trade for it. Yeah, I just saw a post yesterday in one of the Facebook groups. I think it was Guy Nishida in the OTLS group had posted 4 different of the Seattle Space Needle lighters, and one of them was made out of wood. Different construction, and there were some differences in the way that they were marked, and he believed that the 2 that were shorter, which weren't marked as well, were probably not official products of that. I can't even remember now what year. It was the World's Fair in, I can't remember now, the 30s or 40s, or maybe the 60s. I can't remember. It was a World's Fair at some point. That's where that lighter came from. Yeah, I don't know if you saw my video on ashtrays a couple weeks ago, David, but I've got a small ashtray collection as well. It's, I don't know, 20 or so of them right now, maybe a few more. But I don't spend anything on ashtrays. I buy them when they're, I have a hard time spending $10. It would have to really be an interesting ashtray for me to spend $10 on. But I'll spend $4 or $5 on just about any ashtray, especially if it's got good paint, clean, not been scratched up, the graphics or whatever the advertising is. So I've accumulated them here and there because, you know, it takes the sting out a little bit when you're been walking around flea markets or vendor malls, antique malls all day, and you haven't found any lighters, but you can have an ashtray or two. That's, like I said, not quite as cool. Usually not anything to fix on an ashtray, but still a cool Tobacciana related item. What's up, Dylan? Oobla doobla. Glad that you have rejoined us. Yeah, maybe was it 1961 Zippo Daily Fix? I can't remember now. If you're in the OTLS Facebook group, then you'll know what I'm talking about if you saw that post yet. I think it was yesterday. But I think it's interesting, David, talking about the ashtrays, because I published that video with all of my ashtrays, and I always post those under the category Other Useful Mechanisms, simply because Facebook only lets, or YouTube only lets me make a certain number of categories, and I may have already reached my limit. I can't remember, but I don't think I had the space to add one specifically for ashtrays, and I don't have all that many other useful mechanisms. So it just seemed right to put ashtrays into that category. They're definitely not lighters. But when I publish a video about ashtrays, it doesn't get near the number of views or likes or anything that any kind of lighter video does. So I was really happy to show off all those ashtrays a couple weeks ago, but not many other people really seem to care. That's all right, though. Not everybody likes everything the same. Did anybody attend J-Rose live stream over the weekend? I saw the notification, but was babysitting my granddaughter that night, and so I could not participate. I think ZF77 Outdoors did one this weekend as well. I heard from our buddy Azriel in the comments of one of the videos this past week. It was the video that we did a month or so ago about vapor lock in a petrol lighter, and he was saying that vapor lock is just part of the business of dealing with petrol lighters, which I agree with that to some degree, but if you light the lighter or fuel the lighter perfectly, then it shouldn't be that much of an issue. And if you're like me and you have a tendency to overlight or overfill them every time, then it sometimes can be a big issue. Also haven't heard from Sean this week. Hopefully they can jump in here. Haven't heard from our friend East Wah today either. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with East Wah's videos over on TikTok. Better get over there and check them out before the government shuts TikTok down and doesn't let us watch it anymore. But he also published a video or two on his YouTube channel. So East Wah is, appears to be hard at work on TikTok and on YouTube. Okay, Professor, maybe I'm getting confused then about seeing J-Rose notification. I think that was on Friday. I think I decided I was going to put that one up earlier and I didn't do it. I think it's about out of fuel anyway. Yeah. No, David, it was not. Hello, Al-Q. How are you? Glad that you have joined us. You know, I've heard that argument a lot about whether or not it's safe or even pleasant to light up with the Zippo. Hello, JH Pilot 83. Glad that you have joined us. But I don't really, I light up with a Zippo all the time, and I don't really taste it. So, yeah, it's probably not the best thing to be, it'd probably be best to use a hemp wick or something like that, where you could, you know, light your lighter and then hold the wick to the fuel or to the flame, and then transfer that over to light whatever you're lighting. But I typically need a little bit more intense flame than that. That's why I use butane lighters so often with a jet flame. So I don't know. I'd say it's relatively safe, but it's probably not the best thing for you. Actually, JH Pilot, I noticed when I was over watching the Professor's Garage's video this morning on the jet light that he's got a video for the copper Zippo with the black insert. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to do that later this afternoon. But I really like them. I think it's a very, the contrast of the black insert with the tone of the copper Zippo. And then, of course, with the way that copper tarnishes, each one, you got the possibility, you just don't know after you use it how it's going to turn out, what kind of patina it's going to develop, and how it'll look. So, yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. And I'm definitely in the market for one. I never really pay retail price for anything. So for me to justify buying one and having one, I'm going to have to get a deal on it. So we'll see. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm definitely in the market for the solid copper. I think it's a really cool lighter. And yeah, I think they've made a ton of them. I don't have any idea about the numbers, but I don't know what that might have done to the value of the old solid coppers that were made from like '02 to the late aughts. They might have impacted the vintage market by making so many of them available new today, but they're still calling it a prototype or pre-production. Pre-production, I think, is the word they used. So I don't know what it'll do to the value. I don't know if the value of what you pay for one now, if that will increase with time, but for the most part, Zippo lighters hold their value pretty well. But they have made a ton of those new coppers over the last couple of years. So I haven't seen one of those personally, Professor, but the whole thing is plated with some black finish, like a black glossy finish like chrome. It's like a black chrome of sorts. I can imagine you probably wouldn't want to slide it in and out of there too often, unless you're just flat out going to use that insert. David says, what is a vintage cigarette lighter brand that is underrated and a good deal? I think that there's a lot of them, David. I think Park are underrated. We were talking about Champ Austria earlier. Those are underrated. But, there are a lot of people that, for the way that most people think, I think that they're all underrated compared to Zippo. Even Dunhill and Ronson. The most common Ronson stuff, maybe there's a ton of it out there, but they made enough models, and, there's some scarcity to some of those models to make even collecting Ronsons fun and, not the easiest thing in the world to gather all of them. I've been fortunate enough to own several different ones, but I don't have any Ronson collection at all, so I literally, well, I take that back. I've got the one Whirlwind Imperial that was brand new and cracked the leather on. I don't know, I think I need to soak this, get the adhesive off this, and might make it look a little bit better. I also need to dig out another Dunhill Blue Flint for it somewhere because it doesn't have a flint in it right at the moment. But yeah, there's a lot of good brands. I don't have, there's not a brand that I think of that I just go, that's just, there may be like the Scripto views. That's something that are harder. I don't know anything about replacing the seals or anything like that. But that's one that is a little bit more difficult to refurbish than others, but for the most part, they're all just about clearing flint tubes and maybe re-wicking them. You don't have as many problems even possible in most petrol lighters as you do a scripto view, because you're not reliant on O-ring seals in a lighter that has wadding. That wadding is going to hold the fuel, and rubber seals, O-rings, gaskets, whatever, that may prolong your fuel from evaporation for some time, but none of them seal off perfectly. So every petrol lighter that doesn't seal the bottom, and even the regular size Cygnus lighters have a nice gasket on the bottom, and they seal nice and snug with the spring on the top, but the fuel still doesn't last over a few days. The only place it can really evaporate is out from around that snuffer. So, anyway, I digress. But I would definitely say if you like flip-top type lighters, otherwise, Japanese-made lighters are another place, and there's a ton of different brands. But they did knockoffs of all kinds of lift arm lighters and other style automatic mechanisms, and then plenty of advertising lighters with emblems or military presentation type lighters, advertising lighters with painted graphics. You can find some really cool lighters with really cool graphics for a fraction of the price of the Zippo with that same exact advertisement on it sometimes. So Japanese lighters are another option that I think a lot of collectors neglect. Okay, I was wondering about that, Professor. I did notice that I didn't see it over there in your published videos, but when I went to watch it, it sent me there like that's where it was. So I did wonder about that, though. Yeah, I don't know enough about copper, or to know if there's certain things, but I know from just watching people buying those and handling them in the Facebook lighter groups, and other people saying, hey man, you need to watch it, that thing's gonna react to every fingerprint you put on it. Yeah, I was wondering about that. I did hear in the ZF77 live stream a while back, Professor, where he was talking, or somebody was talking, maybe it was somebody in the live chat had commented that what they had been sold as a Zorro solid copper was actually copper plated, seems like. So he was saying that the Zippo solid copper is on its second run of 80,000. Yeah, I don't know what that would do, what that would be like compared to their typical collectible or their typical lighter that they just released to the public that's not actually made as a collectible. But that does seem like a lot. Yeah, no problem, David. Like I said, go over. You can go over to my website, dependableflame.com, and under the second category there, as I go across the top, it says categories, and then it says lighters. If you click on lighters, you'll get a drop-down menu, and there's a page, archived lighter listings, and I've got them separated by different brands, but you can look down through there. Every single lighter that's listed over there, maybe there were one or two that sold for in the $20 range, but I don't remember in the last couple of years selling anything for less than $25 or so. So that'll just tell you what the market is for those particular lighters, because you can find a lot of those lighters in, bigger groups of lighters or whatever. If you're collecting, then that's typically probably how you're trying to buy a lot, is in groups rather than paying full price for one. But anyway, there's plenty of those lighters over there. Conwall, Continental, Barlow, plenty of those that were made in Japan that have very cool graphics. They're very collectible lighters. They're not going to fetch as much as a Zippo, but they'll still bring a good price if you ever decide to sell them. Still just as fun to collect and find, but you're probably not going to have to lay out as much cash initially as you would to bring in a big group of Zippo lighters. Interesting. You say it looks like a paint of some kind. I was wondering, because when they say black plated, that sounds very untechnical. Yeah, Penguin are great. Well, Penguin who makes the Cygnus, or who made the Cygnus, but they also made a ton of flip-top lighters. They made flat advertising lighters. Penguin made just about everything. But Penguin is a good one. Continental's good. Yeah, I'm cool with it. If it's just the fact of the oil on your hands changing the color a bit, or changing the tone, or, obviously it's not going to be symmetrical. It seems cool. What I don't like is green oxidation. Looks like behind the toilet at a bar on a Saturday night kind of tarnish. I don't think that's fun for anybody. Yeah, I would agree with you, ZDF. I think that, well, especially to still be calling them pre-production models after they've been just selling them like hotcakes it's been a couple of years now, hasn't it? I don't know how they can justify calling it a pre-production. But, I don't have any problem with them making them either. It's obviously a very popular thing. The ones that had been produced over the years, the special orders, I guess, going back to maybe the 1960s, and then well, I guess you would call them production, that were made from 02 to like 07 or 09, something like that. The thing is about different brands, David, is sometimes you'll run into a certain element, like I was talking about with the park lighters, with the brute force leaf spring hinge design. It's not as strong a design as the Zippo working with the cam spring design. So there are different nuances of different lighters and different brands, and there will be, things that you'll realize as you work to repair some, that you may say, well, this is one I want to remember because I don't really care to do that again. Some of the Ronsons with the spring bottom, that spring, once it fails, I don't think there's a way to fix it, at least not an easy way. There are other lighters that have things riveted in place. They don't use screws or whatever. So there are some nuances with different brands that you pick up that way. But for the most part, you know, if it meets your aesthetic standards and looks like something that was made quality enough, which most lighters were, that it can be repaired, then it definitely has value. Clark, yep, I've had some Clark lift arm lighters. I don't know, probably 4 or 5 of them over time. They're good lighters for sure. You think that they went far enough, huh? That's the last one you're gonna buy? Yeah, I get it. I definitely, I don't know if the company recognizes what they have with their base of collectors. Because if it wasn't for collectors buying their lighters, you know, the number of lighters that get bought that are never even going to have the sticker peeled off of them, I don't believe they would still be in business today if it wasn't for that base of collectors. So it does seem to me that they ought to be a little bit more open to collectors' concerns. I've seen a lot of stuff here lately with Zippos coming out of the factory with really loose hinges or finishes that either wear off too easy or are already blemished. High polished lighters that look like they're all scratched up. Anyway, you're not the first person that I've heard express displeasure with Zippo as a company. So it just came out in March of last year, so just a little over a year ago. Yeah, I guess that probably makes sense. Still, that's a lot of lighters, especially if that's 160,000. I don't know, seems like a bunch. Is the Space Force lighter, is that a... Oh, you're talking about the Space Force, like the Air Force. They've got a Space Force lighter. Is that on Zippo.com? Or is that one available on Amazon? I never heard of Win Alfie. David, what kind of lighter is that? Is it the brand printed on the bottom of a flip-top lighter? I'm familiar with Win lighters that were butane. Don't know any specific models. I have come across a bunch of Win lighters over the course of my time doing this that I attempted to fill up with butane, but I don't think I ever had a Win lighter that would even hold gas. So, Professor, if you don't smoke, how often do you find yourself using your lighter? Do you pull out your lighter and light up a smoke for somebody else? Does that happen very often? I can see somebody carrying a lighter just for that purpose. I can see carrying a lighter just because you might want to be able to start a fire in an emergency, even though most people in their lifetime are never going to have that. that happen. You know, most people aren't going to run into car trouble or get pulled over on the side of the road during an ice or snowstorm and be trapped in the car for hours at a time. But if you ever do have that happen and you've got a lighter on you, well, that's a plus. So just because it's not likely doesn't mean you shouldn't be prepared, or that anybody should knock you for being repaired or for being prepared. But the pipe inserts are definitely cool, and I could see where a pipe insert would be helpful if you were, say, trying to start a fire. You know, it takes a little bit for that flame to go around the corner and then go down. It's not easy to blow it down. So you might have a little bit easier time blowing one down into some kindling from a pipe insert, or from a pipe insert that's lit. Yeah, I could definitely see that a pipe insert might be more beneficial when lighting a campfire or any kind of fire in the wild, as opposed to a regular Zippo insert. Okay, well there's at least 3 or 4 good reasons to be able to light something up, or to need a flame. Nothing wrong with that at all. I was just curious. If you know, there have been times in my life where I was hunting every weekend or working on a particular piece of property in the outdoors in my spare time. I definitely, at that point, I could have seen carrying one, even if I did not need it to combust something that I was going to smoke. But right now, these days, for what I do on a daily basis, I wouldn't really have the need of a lighter if I didn't smoke. So, but who knows? That could change at any moment. But like we were saying, it's a good idea to carry it. It's just a little bit of preparation that might pay off. Of course, it would really suck if you carried that lighter all that time and didn't keep it fueled, and then the one time you need it, all it would do was spark. But at least in a pinch, you could put gasoline or maybe even some other kind of fuel in there if you didn't have petrol fuel and you needed fire bad enough. I still don't have the tires on that automobile that I've mentioned to you guys the last couple of weeks. I don't know, maybe I didn't mention it last week. Maybe that was the 2 weeks prior to that. I do have the tires, and one of them installed on the new wheel. Just gotta having trouble in this apartment complex getting a jack small enough to fit underneath that Mustang with 2 flat tires on one side. With the limitations that I have for maneuvering that jack around this very compact parking lot here in Deep Deuce. But it's not my car, and we've managed to get around. We're still able to get around, so we'll get around it sooner or later. we'll get it fixed sooner or later. And if she was in any bigger a hurry, then I probably would be too, but so far it's seemed to work for both of us. So yeah, unless you're talking about the Win butane type lighters, I'm not sure what Win Alfie lighters are, David. You can always send me a picture though over in the, use Facebook Messenger over on the Facebook lighter group, or dependableflame.com Facebook lighter page, either one. Well, the car didn't come with anything. Like I said, it's not my car. But when she bought it, it didn't come with anything. It doesn't have a spare tire or a jack of any kind in the trunk. And it got up here and got flat before I had a chance to do anything about it. So anyway, now I'm trying to maneuver around. But like I said, she hasn't been in a hurry, so I haven't. I think we're all good, but sooner or later I do need to tie that project up, and that way we'll be fully mobile again. But yeah, it's I tried to get the jack for my Jeep Renegade underneath it, and it wouldn't. Of course, the Renegade sits up there really high. That jack wasn't made to need to fit under anything that small, so. Yeah, bottle jack I think would be too tall. Yeah, well, we had a broken wheel on this one, so it wasn't suitable to drive anywhere. But anyway, like I said, I've gotten the wheel replaced. I've gotten the tire installed on the new wheel. I just need to get that wheel now on the car, and then the other wheel off the car and go get the other tire installed on there. It's 2015, I believe. So not the newest style, but well, I mean, same basic body as the newest style, I think. But it's 19-inch wheels, very low profile. The car doesn't set up hardly off the ground at all. Yeah, that's nice though, to have your brother-in-law with a shop like that, to be able to get a car up in the air. Had plenty of times in my life where that would have been really handy. My dad and I used to just rent a A-frame for the weekend, A-frame and a winch, back when I was a teenager and putting motors in and out of cars. But a whole other issue when you need to get underneath one. You seem to have done a little bit of everything, Professor. Lived in a bunch of different countries. Worked at the Lexus dealership. You talking about the old, like a Grand Wagoneer? ZDF? Is that the same as a Grand Cherokee? I had a Cherokee, like a 91 or 92 model. My parents had a similar car from a little bit later, but they also had a 1980s model Grand Wagoneer. And my dad ended up driving back up here, and they traded in back when they were doing rebates for clunkers. They traded that Grand Wagoneer in on a Dodge Challenger. Really cool car that my mom was really proud of. It was a pretty neat car. Okay, 2004. Yeah, I'm not familiar exactly. Was that just like a more luxury package on the Cherokee? I don't remember the Grand Cherokee. I've owned, I had a CJ7, 1980 something, maybe 84, 85 model. I owned that back in the late 80s, early 90s. I owned that 91 Cherokee, and then this 2016 Renegade that I've been driving now for about 6 years, and it's the best vehicle I've ever owned. I love it. It's I'm not sure how much of a Jeep it really is, but that little four-cylinder engine will get up and go. It's wrapped pretty tight, but the way that entire vehicle operates with that 9-speed shiftable automatic transmission, it's been a blast to drive. I really enjoy it. But the drivetrain, I'm not sure. I think the majority of the technology of the actual function of that vehicle comes either from Fiat or Chrysler. Yeah, all right. We had a lot of Jeeps in our family. My dad owned several Jeeps too, so like I said, I'm pretty familiar, but I missed that one for some reason. Yeah, I pretty much spent my entire working career. I spent 25 years at the U.S. Postal Service from July of '92 until July of 2017. And then before that, basically had one job working for my grandfather. Here, a couple part-time jobs here and there, but nothing major other than working for my grandfather, building gate valves, ball valves, different drilling expendables for the oil field industry, and also working in a feed store that he owned from the time I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 until 21. So it's pretty much the two jobs that I ever had before becoming a lighter mechanic. Yeah, the old Grand Wagoneer, that was a pretty cool vehicle, but yeah, that one my dad had, it definitely had been through the ringer by the time he gave it up. It was a good vehicle though that hauled people up and down from their cabin to the water for years. Zippo Daily Fix is listing off his resume as well. So it looks like you guys both have done a variety of jobs over the years. The only variety in my job nowadays is the different mechanisms or different hurdles I run into in repairing lighters. So I don't really look at it as a job like selling stamps or sorting mail or painting gate valves or hauling 50-pound bags of feed around. Of course, when I was doing the feed store gig, I was a teenager. I was in shape, lifting weights all the time for football. So That was just a easier way, or kind of a continuation of a way for me to stay in shape. Wasn't a horrible job. Most of the jobs that I did at the Postal Service over the years, they were not good jobs. They were not rewarding. They weren't the kind of jobs you look back on, you know, with good feelings about them. That's pretty much me right now, ZDF. Odds and ends here and there. I do this and that. Whatever's required of me. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and cut out of here. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Zippo Daily Fix, the Professor's Garage. Hopefully we get more lighter content created, more lighter content creators. And you guys make sure to go over and follow their channels. Eastwad Doom Flam. Zippo Lions Den. Zippo Fanatic 77 Outdoors. All those that are creating quality, lighter content, which it's all quality to me. If it's lighter content, it's quality enough. So we will see you guys again next week. Until next time.